Hey, welcome back here to the Semi-Seminarian. I'm Pastor Jim, preacher, storyteller, and fellow traveler on the long road between hunger and grace. Today, we're talking about what happens after the meal, that holy quiet when the cup's empty but the taste still lingers. Today is the first Sunday in October. That means it's World Communion Sunday. So, from Stillwater to Seoul to Sao Paulo, somebody just whispered the same words Jesus said in that upper room, "Do this in remembrance of me." And somehow, across time zones and tired souls, we're all sitting at the same table. If the Spirit moves while you're here, and she just might, go ahead, like, share, subscribe. Not for fame, not for clicks, but so this gospel in the static might find somebody who still believes the taste of grace can linger long after the service ends. I'll see you on the other side.
Maybe you can still feel it in your mouth, the faint sweetness of the grape juice, that last crumb hiding by a molar. The room hasn't quite remembered how to talk yet. Cough, a sniffle, a rustle of bulletins, but mostly the kind of silence that's earned, not enforced. You look down at your empty hands. You still remember the weight, bread pressed into your palm, the cup toward your lips. And you heard the story again, the one from Luke 22. You saw it land in real time just now. He took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And you did it. You remembered. You participated. And now, in the soft hum that follows, you realize remembering isn't always about just nostalgia. It's about digestion. You taste mercy while you breathe. Maybe the air smells a little like lemon oil and candles. Welch's grape juice and furniture polish. The pew beneath you is warm from your own weight. For a heartbeat, you think, this is what presence feels like. You came in hungry. You're still here. Not quite full, but satisfied enough to remember what hunger's for. And maybe if you listen close, you can hear the echo of kitchens and sanctuaries all across the world. Someone in Nairobi is washing the chalice. Someone in Seoul humming a hymn. A pastor in Peru is drying the plate with a linen cloth. The same smell of grape and bread has crossed oceans. You realize you are one heartbeat in the global pulse of Thanksgiving. Maybe you close your eyes for a moment and imagine that upper room. The table there wasn't fancy. The air smelled like sweat and oil lamps. Maybe one of the disciples still chewing on some olives. Maybe another staring down at his feet, ashamed. Jesus looked at that ragged circle of friends, fishermen, zealots, taxmen. Jesus looked at them and he called them beloved. And you sit in a pew here in Oklahoma and you realize you're part of that very same circle. Their bread is your bread. Their redemption is your redemption. Their table is your table. And when you open your eyes, you see the same Christ looking back through the eyes of the people around you, the young, the old, the ones who sing too loud, the ones who don't sing at all. And most weeks, you chase meaning like wind-blown paper. You scroll, you drive, you plan, you hold a phone more often than someone's hand. You fill the hours, but not your soul. You know the taste of busyness, but not belonging. And there are tables everywhere, kitchen counters, coffee shops, conference rooms. Hardly any of them feel like this one. Out there, you pay for your meal and clean clear your own plate, but in here the meal is handed to you like mercy you can't afford. And you think of how Luke told it. The Son of God taking bread in his own hands, giving thanks when he knew betrayal was already walking the hallway. You can't help but swallow hard at that detail. He gave thanks anyway. He broke the bread anyway. He poured that cup anyway. You realize how easily you can skip Thanksgiving when there's pain in the room. How quick you are to reach for distraction instead of doxology. You remember times you bowed your head before a meal and muttered thanks like a reflex, but not a revelation. But here, at this table, Thanksgiving isn't a prelude to anything. It's the point. The table unmasks you. It shows the gap between how often you say you trust God and how rarely you pause to taste his provision. Maybe you think of those first Christians in Acts. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. They weren't building cathedrals. They were building communities. One loaf of bread at a time. You think of the time the table has saved you, the weeks you nearly gave up, but the bread reminded you you are still invited. The time someone pressed the cup into your trembling hand and you knew you belonged even if you couldn't sing the hymn right now. So this meal exposes you, but gently. Reminds you what's been missing. Not food, but fellowship. Not talk, tenderness. Table confronts us with the simplicity of grace. No screens, no slogans, just bread and the cup. And a promise that does not expire when you mess up again. You sit there tasting confession without words. Lord, I forget how to be grateful when I'm afraid. And you feel the answer come back to you, quiet but sure. That's why I keep inviting you week after week to dinner. You've heard that line over and over again. He gave thanks and broke it. Maybe you caught it this time. Gratitude comes before the break. The fancy word for communion, Eucharist, means thanksgiving. And maybe you're beginning to understand that now. Every loaf starts with praise. When you whispered thank you before eating, you weren't being polite. You were participating in the divine order of things. Blessing before breaking, gratitude before giving. You could smell it even now, yeast and grace rising together. Maybe you remember how your grandmother gave thanks over cornbread, or how your grandfather bowed his head before supper, even when he'd lost that job. Thanksgiving like that is resurrection rehearsal. It's hope baked right into the crust. Gratitude is rebellion against despair. Every thank you utter defies the lie that life is somehow meaningless. Every loaf shared is a small act of resurrection. You realize that Jesus' thanksgiving wasn't optimism. It was trust in the Father's goodness, even when the cross had begun casting its shadow. He said, "This is my body given for you." You felt that "for you" slide across the room like light across water until it reached you. For you. Not the crowd in general. Not humanity in principle. You. You took that bread, knowing the same Jesus who handed it to Judas is handing it to you too. You understand now that grace doesn't discriminate by performance. It finds you where you sit, and it feeds you before you've earned it. You can feel the loaf in your memory, the grain soft but solid, a texture that says incarnation. God became chewable. Heaven put on flesh so you could touch it. You remember the way it stuck to your tongue, how it dissolved into sweetness and salt. That's what grace does. It dissolves self-hatred into belonging. And maybe you think of all the saints who came before you, those who served this meal when lights were dim, with whispered prayers through tears, carried trays through hospital rooms and prison wards. You realize every time you take and you eat, you're joining that unbroken procession of grace bearers. When he lifted the cup and he said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you," that sentence did not stop at the upper room. It kept pouring until it hit this sanctuary, this Sunday, this you. You remember the taste, sweet and warm. It's what covenant tastes like. Joy, honesty, perseverance. You know now, every time you swallow it, you're signing your name again on a promise that he has already sealed. And the aftertaste isn't guilt, it's glory. It's sign the truth that went down deep. You realize maybe for the first time that the table isn't about what you did this week. It's about what Christ keeps on doing. This is not a museum meal for saints. It is a refueling stop for sinners who've run out of strength. So you whisper to yourself, grace doesn't run out, it refills. You hear chairs move, someone breathes out the long sigh of the satisfied. The pastor says a few words of prayer, but you're not done praying. You're praying with your senses now. You look around, every face carries that same quiet glaze, the calm of people who've been fed by something they didn't cook. See their farmer's tan, the nurse's tired eyes, student's handbook half open, widow's hands folded like wings, and all of them smell faintly like grape juice now. That's the perfume of belonging. You think about the road that waits outside, gravel, sun, the sound of wind in the cottonwoods. You drive home, maybe fry some okra, maybe watch a football game, maybe call someone you've been avoiding. But before you do, you let the truth settle. Worship didn't end when the cups got put back into the tray. Worship started when you swallowed. And you realize you've been given a portable altar, your very own body. Every kindness you extend this week will be an echo of what you just did. Every word of patience will be a drop from the cup you drank. Every act of mercy will taste just like that bread. You remember Jesus' table manners. He fed the betrayer, forgave before confession, thanked before rescue. And you promise yourself you'll try that kind of Thanksgiving out there in the wild. Maybe you picture yourself in the grocery store line behind someone short on change, and you hear a whisper, "Break bread again." You imagine this same congregation scattered by Monday teachers, welders, nurses, caretakers, each of them carrying crumbs of grace into their own corners of the world. And maybe that's the real miracle. Meal doesn't stay put. It multiplies as it's remembered. When you step outside, the sun hits your face like benediction. The wind smells faintly of dirt, maybe even distant rain. Taste in your mouth meets the taste of Oklahoma air. Combination feels like communion continuing. Smile because you know the truth. You're leaving the sanctuary, but the sanctuary isn't leaving you. Maybe you understand something now you didn't understand when you walked in. That do this in remembrance of me doesn't stop at bread and cup. It keeps on going. In the way you greet that cashier by name, in the way you slow down for the man crossing the street, in the way you forgive before anyone asked you to. You can almost hear him saying it again, but this time it's invitation, not instruction. Keep remembering, keep doing, keep tasting. You take one more deep breath of the sanctuary before you go. The air hangs that strange blend of grape and wax and old hymnals that could only smell like church. You rise, you shake the preacher's hand, still feeling cup's cool echo against your fingers. Someone says, "See you next week," and you smile because you know exactly what they mean. You'll come back to eat again. You need to. Not because you'll lose your faith between Sundays, because you'll get hungry again. And this is the place that feeds what hunger really is. And the table will be there, waiting like an old friend. Same smell, same story, same grace. And when you reach for that bread next time, you'll remember this moment. The one where you realize the taste lingers because the host stays. You walk out into the light with gratitude caught in your breath. The gravel crunches, the sky stretches. And the words, "He started it all," kept echoing soft and sure in your soul. He took bread, gave thanks, and broke it. Gave it to them, saying, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And you whisper back, "We did." Then, because that taste still lingers, you add the only thing left to say. Amen. Amen.
Well, you've been listening to the Semi-Seminarian, and maybe right now you can still taste it. A hit of grape, a crumb of bread, that small reminder that grace is real enough to chew. Don't rush past that. Let it sit a while. The miracle isn't that you took communion, it's that communion keeps taking you. The taste that lingers isn't nostalgia, it's covenant. It means the host stays. So wherever you go this week, into a job that drains you, a home maybe is a little too quiet, a world that forgets to say thank you, remember the feel of the bread in your hand. Remember that you were fed by something you didn't earn, invited before you were ready. And when you see someone hungry for food, for hope, for forgiveness, break bread with them again. Because that's how the gospel travels. One crumb of kindness, one sip of mercy, one quiet "you belong." The right time. If the meal meant something to you today, help set another place at the table. Like, share, subscribe, not just to grow the audience, but to grow the circle of the fed and the forgiven. Because grace doesn't run out, it refills. Until next time, come back hungry, leave forgiven, and remember, the taste lingers because the host stays. I'll see you next time.